liberals are freaking out. I mean, they freaked out over, J.D. Vance when he went to Europe and he said, look, you got to stand for freedom of speech. Wait until they read the Substack now from the State Department. This is something really, really amazing. Something remarkable is happening, and it's really happening at the last place I would expect it to happen, and that is the State Department, because that thing, oh my gosh, that has taken our country and steered it into the wrong direction for so long. And for the very first time in a very long time, the United States Department of State is speaking not like a globalist think tank, but actually as a sovereign nation that finally remembers what it's all about. And it's done it in just over 100 days. Marco Rubio is doing an incredible job, along with the president, on the State Department. We are no longer bowing to international consensus. We're not apologizing for American strength. We're not managing our own decline. Instead, we have clarity about who we are, what we'll defend, and what we will no longer tolerate. Now, think about this. Just a few months ago, we had a State Department that was all tangled up in woke ideology. We were outsourcing our American foreign policy to NGOs that were constantly undermining our values. We had a government that was handing out billions of dollars in aid while our borders were wide open and enemies like China were buying up influence in Panama, buying up farmland in Peoria. I mean, it was crazy, and that's all over now. Rubio has hit the brakes on the Belt and Road madness. We have now, did you know that we fixed Panama, the Panama Canal? He secured Panama's exit from Beijing's grip. He told Latin American leaders, you want a relationship with the U.S., then stop sending your people across the border and start taking responsibility. That's not a press release. This is leadership. And it's happening at the State Department. And most shockingly of all, I think he shut down the Global Engagement Center, that Orwellian outfit that was, masquerading as a disinformation watchdog, but was actually a censorship mill from the U.S. government. Gone. That alone, we should be give him a standing ovation for. Now, it's still the State Department, so, but you can feel the gears turning differently now. The agency is being gutted of its dead weight, of its activist layers. They're all being peeled back and rebuilt on this simple idea. The United States of America must speak clearly, act decisively, and defend its own citizens and values first. I mean, look what's happened. Terrorists? Yep, they're called terrorists. They're on the run. Cartels? Now designated as terrorist organizations. Watch what happens there. Visas for criminal aliens revoked. Students who abuse our generosity to promote jihadist propaganda, you're out. I mean, this is not just a shift in policy. It is a shift in philosophy. This is really good news. And what it is saying to the world is we are no longer confused on who we are. We're not here to play international babysitter. We're not here to sign treaties that handcuff our economy or finance global instability under the banner of aid anymore. We're here to defend American interest and nothing else. Now, you contrast that with the last few years, embassies flying the rainbow flags, Iranian proxies blowing up oil tankers, bent over backwards trying to, kiss the butt of Tehran. I mean, that chapter is over, and it couldn't have ended soon enough, but I can't believe that chapter is over. You have to read the Substack from the State Department. We are now saying loud and clear, America is no longer a doormat. America is no longer a cash machine. America is no longer ashamed. Yes, we've made mistakes, but you made them too. Now, is this making some foreign policy people very uncomfortable? Oh, yeah. The Davos crowd, they hate it. WEF, they hate it. The UN, oh, my gosh. The think tanks, they're screaming right now. And the New York Times is going to talk about tribalism and isolationism and authoritarianism. But you know what? That's how you know it's working. That's how you know we're on the right track. Because for once, we're not admiring the problems, we're solving them. And if this continues, we might just remember what it feels like to lead and be free again. I want to give you some. I want to give you some of the words that Rubio is releasing now under the Substack. You have to read some of it. It's amazing. Let me give you the latest. It was posted, I think, yesterday. It's the clash of civilizations, the need for civilizational allies in Europe. And it builds on what what J.D. Vance said when he was over in Germany. Look, guys, there are certain values that we can't abandon anymore. And there are two rules of thought here, and this is what we probably learned in school and then forgot. The clash of civilizations. This is a thesis that the people's cultural and religious identities will be the primary source of conflict in the post-Cold War world. This came from Sam Hutchinson. He was a political theorist and political scientist, and he argued the future would be fought not between countries, but between cultures. And I don't think we could really get our arms around that because the Western culture was winning. And it was proposed in 1992 at the American Enterprise Institute. And then in 1993, it was an article, and this is what gave birth to Francis Fukuyama's book, The End of History and the Last Man, where it was a completely different philosophy. And that's the one that the State Department and the rest of the world went with. What we're seeing actually is the clash of civilizations is right, that the Western way of life is under attack. And it's under attack internally and externally. Let me give you this because this is worth really listening to because this is a message that our State Department just sent to the rest of the world, and every American should know it as well. The need for civilizational allies in Europe. Let me read it verbatim here. The close relationship between the United States and Europe transcends geographic proximity and transactional politics. It represents a unique bond forged in a common culture, faith, familial ties, mutual assistance in times of strife, and above all, shared Western civilizational heritage. Our transatlantic partnership is underpinned by a rich Western tradition of natural law, virtue ethics, and national sovereignty. This tradition flows from Athens and Rome through medieval Christianity to English common law and ultimately to America's founding documents. Our Declaration's revolutionary assertion that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights echoes the thoughts of Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas and other European heavyweights who recognized that all men possess natural rights and that no government can deny or arbitrate any of those rights. America remains indebted to Europe for this intellectual and cultural legacy. This connection between Europe and the United States is also the reason that we now speak honestly when we disagree or have concerns, and it is why the Trump administration is sounding the alarm in Europe. You know, if their press hadn't made Donald Trump look like Hitler, this would be such a powerful message. Imagine being over in a country, you know, in the Netherlands or Germany or whatever, and you're seeing your country overrun and you're seeing your friends being called terrorists, exactly like what was happening here in America. And nobody on your side is standing up in Europe. There's no leadership. Listen to this. When Vice President Vance addressed this year's Munich Security Conference, he made the reason clear, stating, "What I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values shared with the United States of America." In the aftermath of two devastating world wars, European nations sought to prevent future catastrophes by creating supernatural structures that would bind nations closer together and allow for more substantial diplomatic and economic engagements. This is from the State Department. Proponents of this new order, including well-meaning Christian and pro-democracy parties, sought a grand transformation to a world that would transcend the divisiveness of nationality and creed to usher in an era of unprecedented peace. By overcoming the anchors of nationhood, culture, and tradition, global liberalism promised what Francis Fukuyama, famously called the end of history, the ultimate innovation of political life. Today, this promise lies in tatters. This is so important. Today, this promise lies in tatters. What endures instead is an aggressive campaign against Western civilization itself. Listen to that again. What endures is an aggressive campaign against Western civilization itself. Across Europe, governments have weaponized political institutions against their own citizens and against our shared heritage. Far from strengthening democratic principles, Europe has devolved into a hotbed of digital censorship, mass migration, restrictions on religious freedom, and numerous other assaults on democratic self-governance. These concerning trends have only increased in recent years. In the United Kingdom, police are arresting Christians for silently praying outside of an abortion clinic. In 2023, over 12,000 British citizens were arrested for online posts, including comments critical of Europe's migration crisis that authorities deemed to be grossly offensive. In Germany, the government has established elaborate systems to monitor and censor online speech under the guise of combating disinformation and presenting offense. When the German citizens express legitimate concerns about the economic and social impacts of globalization or criticize politicians, they now risk being fined, labeled as radicals, or even having homes raided by law enforcement. The European Union's Digital Service Act, billed to protect children from harmful online content, is instead being used to silence dissident voices through Orwellian content moderation. Independent regulators now police social media companies, including prominent American platforms like X, and threaten immense fines for non-compliance with their strict speech regulations. So Secretary Rubio is going on, and he talks about what's happening in Germany, what's happened in England, and then he says Americans are familiar with these tactics. Indeed, a similar strategy of censorship, demonization, and bureaucratic weaponization was utilized against President Trump and all of his supporters. What this reveals is that the global liberal project is not enabling a flourishing of democracy. Rather, it is trampling our democracy and Western heritage along with it in the name of a decadent governing class afraid of its own people. Our concerns are not partisan, but principled. The suppression of speech, facilitation of mass migration, targeting of religious expression, and undermining of the electoral choice threatens the very foundation of the transatlantic partnership. Do you hear this? We are now putting Europe on notice. And good. This is critical that we do this. And you know what? If you're a Democrat, you would have been for this. You've changed. Okay? I've changed. I used to be for much more of this globalist crap. It's wrong. It doesn't work. Most likely, if you were a liberal, you were against it. You were against all these endless wars. What new information have you gotten that changes your point of view? I can tell you what information changed me from that globalist to somebody who is now looking at this and going, look, they're violating all of our constitutional rights. And both parties are engaged in it. One's worse than the other, but both parties are engaged in it. I can tell you why I changed. Why did you change? What new information took you away from those eternal truths? Anyway, a Europe that replaces its spiritual and cultural roots, that treats traditional values as dangerous relics, and that centralizes power in unaccountable institutions is a Europe less capable of standing firm against external threats and internal decay. To this end, achieving peace in Europe and around the world requires not a rejection of our shared cultural heritage, but a renewal of it. Secretary Rubio has made it clear the State Department will always act in America's national interest. Europe's democratic backsliding not only impacts European citizens, but increasingly affects American security and economic ties, along with free speech rights of American citizens and companies. Our hope is that both Europe and the United States can recommit to our Western heritage, and that European nations will end the weaponization of government against those seeking to defend it. We will not always agree on scope and tactics, but tangible actions by European governments to guarantee protection for political and religious speech, secure borders, and fair elections would serve as welcome steps forward. The United States remains committed to a strong partnership with Europe and working together on shared foreign policy goals. However, this partnership must be founded upon our shared heritage rather than globalist conformity. Our relationship is too important, our history is too valuable, and the international stakes are too high to allow this partnership to be undermined. Therefore, on both sides of the Atlantic, we must preserve the goods of our common culture, ensuring that Western civilization remains a source of virtue, of freedom, and human flourishing for generations to come. That came from our State Department. You have got to check out what Rubio and the State Department are doing on their new Substack. You can follow them on X, or just go to the State Department. We are sending strong messages and actually standing up for our values.
Glenn Beck.